The Jamaica Stock Exchange and the United Nations Development Programme present Developing Jamaica's Green Bond Plus Market, Unlocking Capital for Sustainable Development. Investing in a sustainable future. Green bonds, stronger communities, brighter tomorrows. The Jamaica Stock Exchange has partnered with the United Nations Development Programme to develop strategies to make Jamaica more resilient to the effects of climate change. This is part of the Jamaican government's Vision 2030 plan to reduce its carbon footprint. These strategies include the launch of Jamaica's Green Bond, enabling interested parties to raise capital for environmental projects such as renewable energy, waste management, sustainable housing, conservation, biodiversity, and efficient transport systems. But what do Jamaicans know about climate change?
What I know say somewhere have to deal with greenery and less gas emission and all those things.
And how the climate adapts to how we treat the environment.
I know that it has a big impact on just the environment, the overall environment.
The weather conditions that we have been experiencing has been a lot different than it used to be. So things have changed a bit. Therefore, the climate has changed.
Climate change is defined as the significant long-term shifts in global or regional weather patterns, primarily driven by human-induced greenhouse gas emissions from activities like fossil fuel use and deforestation. What do Jamaicans know about sustainability?
Sustainability means something that has some form of longevity that can stand the test of time.
Keeping up to what is happening, that you are able to continue doing what you have been doing before.
What do Jamaicans know about green bonds?
I think it's the first I heard that heard green bonds.
Nothing much about green bonds, to be honest.
No, I don't understand what green bonds mean.
I do not understand what green bonds mean.
Green bonds is new to me.
Would you like to learn about green bonds?
I think it's an interesting topic.
I would love to learn a lot more about what green bonds mean.
I would like to learn more about green bond initiatives.
Let's hear what the experts say about green bonds and how they relate to climate change and sustainability.
Green bonds concentrate on the environment. So those are loans at an interest rate to the borrower of lower than the interest rate of normal bonds. The green bonds, there is a certification that must come with it to say that it is certified green.
What types of projects are funded by green bonds?
The types of projects that are available for green bonds financing vary, but it really has anything to do with combating the negative effects of climate change. So you're talking about wastewater management projects, you're talking about recycling projects, you're talking about renewable energy, combating pollution, anything that sort of negatively affects the quality of the environment in which we live and work and can be classified as quote-unquote green, are eligible for funding through green bonds.
Who can issue green bonds?
Issuers of green bonds vary. Governments issue such bonds, private companies, financial institutions, and in many cases also globally, NGOs issue securities such as this. It's not really restricted to one particular type of issuer. Green and social bonds are being driven by a renewed awareness really of the effects of social development and environmental development that will have on our whole economic infrastructure.
Green bonds are new to most markets. So it is important to understand that when an issuer issues a bond, it is one that from the get-go of the prospectus or the documents of offer tells you exactly what the bond will be used for. Now, there is a regulatory framework to ensure that the bonds will be used for the purpose of green, and specifically as it has been outlined in the documents, which is where the regulatory environment comes in.
What are the requirements for issuers of green bonds?
The JSC will effect robust oversight. The framework in terms of green bond requires also external stakeholders to provide oversight. Now this would include your auditors and the persons who are accredited to assess whether this green bond project is feasible, whether companies are doing what they're supposed to do.
What role does green financing play in Jamaica's journey towards sustainable development?
So climate change has really emerged as one of the biggest existential crises that countries are facing around the world. One of the priorities for the region, in addition to sustainable finance, is indeed taking more robust action on climate change with international partners. Climate change, as we saw in 2024, is leading to more frequent and severe climate-induced disasters, such as hurricanes, storms, flooding, and this is really stretching the ability of communities to stay resilient and to advance on those development goals, such as those set in Vision 2030.
What does ESG mean? And why is it important for businesses and investors?
ESG stands for Environment, Social, Governance, referring to a set of additional factors that businesses ought to take into consideration as they make their strategic planning and risk management decisions. The reason that ESG is even a topical conversation is the reality of changes happening in our planet. And it's becoming problematic to the extent that it's now impacting the way that we make decisions as individuals and as businesses. When we bring businesses to the table to examine what are some of the risks that are inherent in climate change, or what are some of the risks that are inherent in the fact that fishermen can't catch enough fish on a daily basis, or the fact that there is a very intense hurricane, and while we may have had one a year, we now might have 3 a year, or there's a fundamental shift. How does that impact me as a business?
Globally, there's been a real uptake of sustainable finance instruments in the market. And so this is a real opportunity also for Jamaica to help close that implementation gap on many of those green goals under Vision 2030 by scaling up that finance that's needed for things like putting in new technology in small and medium-sized enterprises, for example, or putting in place new markets altogether for green goods and services. So this is really a future opportunity, I think, for Jamaica. So over the last 10 years, we've seen a rapid expansion of green bonds as a finance instrument, an investment instrument, whereby governments, companies, national governments, local municipalities can issue debt instruments to investors for long-term investments into objectives such as the green transition.
With green bonds from the Jamaica Stock Exchange, you can invest in a sustainable and secure future.
Green bonds are relevant, especially when you look at small island state and Jamaica being one of those. It is so relevant because there is growing set, especially among younger people who are conscious about sustainability. And because of that, a huge pool of capital that is available for green projects.
Green bonds are to raise funds for environmental projects, focusing on our people and giving our people opportunities to make themselves better so that they can better look after their own welfare and that of their families and the communities in which they live and work.
Whether building your savings or planning for your family's future, your investment can help protect our planet while providing returns. Start your green investment journey with the Jamaica Stock Exchange today. Call the Jamaica Stock Exchange at 876-9673-271 and visit our website greenbond.jamstockex.com. Green bonds, stronger communities, brighter tomorrows.